Hey, everybody out there. Thanks for being here. Happy Wednesday. I hope you're all doing okay and surviving that old world out there. It's kind of crazy, crazy times we're in. So tonight we have a great guest, but before we get to Juergen Hess, I'm so excited to have him here. Just a couple reminders. I would like to say that during the show live, we're going to give 3 questions. We'll give you the clue when they're coming up. We're making them easy for the first couple months. So last week we didn't have anybody win. So I hope that you can answer the questions. You just go to RockyMountainRanchResearch.org/podcast and you fill out your answers right there. And I'll send you guys a free PDF just for watching. And if you watch and you're consistent, you'll have a nice little collection of really cool historical documents from back in the day. So pay attention for that. Let's see, what other announcements? We just finished the 2025 Snippy event in the San Luis Valley, and we already have the date set for next year. So, you can't have an excuse because I'm telling you the dates a year in advance so you can plan. But next August 14th through the 16th, 2026, make plans to be out there in the San Luis Valley. It was a fantastic event, really great bonding. It's so wonderful to be out there in the great outdoors. You could camp, you can bring your motorhomes, or you can stay in hotels in Alamosa, whatever your desire. You can be accommodated there in the San Luis Valley. So I hope to see you guys out there next year. What other announcements? I think that's it. I think I'm really excited just to bring Juergen Hess in here. Juergen Hess is a PhD in metaphysical science. He is an experiencer, which I'm anxious to hear about. And he's also a great investigator. He's out there in Sedona, Arizona. And I know you all know what a hot spot that is. And he does a lot of work out there at the Bradshaw Ranch. So another ranch this week. And we're trying to connect these dots. So without further ado, hey, Paranormal Paul, thanks for being here. Let's go ahead and bring Juergen in right to the stage. How you
Hello.
doing? Thanks so much for being here.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. It's always fun to be able to share some evidence and just let people know that this stuff is real.
That's right. How long did it take you to get to that point where you became a believer? Maybe you always were a believer. I don't know. I kind of want to
Mm,
start there. Like, how did you get involved? What were your experiences? Can you kind of tell us about
yeah,
that? I would love
yeah,
to hear that.
absolutely. This is all John Lear's fault, 100%.
Uh-oh.
For me, some strange things were happening to me. It started at the age of 24.
Okay.
The apartment I lived in, like weird things happening at night, things moving around, not where I left them. And then there was an instance where I was driving in a car, me and the passenger, we should have crashed into a bunch of other cars, but there was a flash of light, and suddenly everything was fine, and we were driving on the other side of the accident. And I started to realize there was something more going on than I understood. And it started to make me feel kind of like a crazy person, to be honest.
Mhm.
And there was only one person I really loved listening to, and that was John Lear on Coast to Coast when he'd come on. And one day I was in Las Vegas, and John would always say on the air, he's not hiding from anyone. He lives in Vegas and he's listed in the white pages. And so a friend of mine I was out there with, we were going to head home, and I said, hey, I want to get some nice expensive cigars and leave them in John's mailbox because John always said he loves cigars. So I went and spent like 150 bucks on 3 cigars. We look up the address. We go to John's house, and there's this giant gate around the house, and there's no mailbox. And I was like, okay, I don't want these things, and I'm not going to just huck them over the fence. So like, yeah.
Torpedo incoming cigar.
So I called the number listed in the white pages, and John answered the phone. And it was like this very surreal moment where I was hearing the voice on the phone that I'd listened to so many times. And at that point, the only time I ever even tried to communicate with him was on this old internet forum. And so I said, John, my name is Juergen. You don't know me. We talked on GLP, which was the name of the forum at the time, and I brought you some cigars. And he said, where did we talk? And I said, on this forum. He said, oh, you better come in. And the gates opened up, and we pulled up inside and went in the house. And at that time, John had this gigantic office in his house that he spent all his time in, just covered in photographs. He had this big bank of TVs at his desk, and it was like everything you would think John Lear's office would look like. You know, it was like the coolest place ever. And that first day, we spent like 5 or 6 hours with John. I don't know, and he passed away now, and I'll never know why John took to me so well. But I spent from that point like 15 years visiting John, hanging out. He became my best friend and like a mentor, and um, he told me that I meant a lot to him, which, like I said, I don't know why, but I was grateful to have that relationship with him. And so John talking to me all the time about him and Bob Lazar and Area 51 and showing me photos. You know, I was pretty well convinced that this UFO phenomena was real, but I finally wanted to just see one. I wanted to know it in my heart by seeing one. And so I was trying to figure out a way to do that. And John told me that he knew for sure the incident in 1980 in the Rendlesham Forest. He knew that was real. He said he knew guys on the base. He talked to them. And so I used that because in that incident, there was a coordinate list given of like special places on the planet. You know, it lists the pyramids in Egypt, the Nazca lines in Peru, all these things. And then oddly enough, it listed Sedona, Arizona. When the other places, there are these obvious ruins and things. So I was like, well, why is Sedona listed? It also happened to be the closest of the coordinates, so that was nice. And so I decided to make a trip out here. And I figured the worst that would happen is I would have a fun camp trip because it's beautiful out here and I liked camping. And so we came out the first time. We went on a UFO tour at night vision and saw, I don't know, 80 UFOs flying around. Like it blew my mind. And it became an annual thing for me. I missed after that, like it took me a while to process. And about 2, 3 years later, I came back and then I started coming back every year. Then I started coming back twice a year. And then I finally made the jump to do what I had to do to move out here so that I could see if I lived here all the time, would this phenomena get to know me and interact with me more? Because each camp trip, like the first one, I saw a bunch of UFOs, and the second time I came back, I thought, oh, I'm not going to see anything as cool as that. And no, I saw more, and that would happen each time. I would think, now I saw as much as I'm going to see, and then no, I'm surprised again by what I was encountering. And it was the first camp trip I made alone. So it's kind of funny because, you know, I'd bring friends that were campers. And after a few trips, it started to get hard for me to find people that would come with me because I'm like, yeah, it's cool. We'll go camping. UFOs will fly over our head. And then you just go in your tent and go to sleep. And they're like, no, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to go sleep in a tent under UFO. So I came out alone, which was hard for me because I used to have like crippling anxiety. And I didn't know if I could handle going on a camp trip alone. I was like panicking, just thinking, what am I going to do out there? And so I decided the encounters were worth to face that anxiety. And I feel like it actually helped me cure my anxiety. That first trip alone, I got up that first morning and I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do today? And I realized I can do whatever I want. There's nobody here to tell me what I should or shouldn't do. I don't have to wait for anyone else. And so I wanted to find a petroglyph carving of a spiral because I know they're kind of this important um, shape that's throughout a lot of the world. And the only thing I had to go on was an obscure post from a forest ranger on a defunct ranger forum that showed a picture of a spiral carving, and he told the forest road that he had seen it off of. So I got up early that morning, said I'm going. It was raining, didn't care. I get down there and I'm looking around and I start seeing petroglyphs and think it's really cool. And I see this one and I was looking at it, I was like, what the heck am I looking at? Because in the center of it was this very tall creature with humans around it. And the tall creature by its foot, they carved a big footprint. And I was looking at it, I was like, is this a carving of a Bigfoot or something like that?
Bigfoot.
And then in that moment, I realized I was heat soaked. It was like 120 degrees and I was out of water. And I kind of had this bit of a panic. I thought, oh, I need to get back to my car to get more water. So I turned to go back. And when I turned, I was turning into the wind. And I smelled that smell that people report, which is, I mean, to me, it smelled like a dead body mixed with burnt hair and burnt tires. Like it was the most rank thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is that? And I calm down, retrace your steps. Maybe there's a dead skunk or something. Didn't smell like a skunk, but I was trying to mellow myself out.
I smelled that smell. Then
Yeah,
I describe it like a dead body. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
And so I followed my retraced my steps, which was like maybe 100, 150 yards. And I got to my starting point. I didn't see anything. And I was still, and I'm still trying to learn, but I was really trying to understand intuition versus just like my creative bored mind. And in that moment, it was like the strongest intuitive hit I've had up to that point. And it was just like, just go another 30 feet. And I was like, God, that's weird. I was like, ah. I walked another 30 feet and there was a patch of sand because most of this area was river rocks and dry leaves. And there's a patch of sand with the most perfect Bigfoot footprint. I mean, mid-tarsal break, wide heel, the toes had kicked the sand as it walked, and next to it was knuckle prints. So it
Wow.
was right foot, left hand knuckles. And I was losing it. I was like, what? And now, granted, I wasn't in a good state. I was on the verge of heat stroke. So I took pictures and video, and, they can see that in the first Hoodoo Tall documentary. And I kind of scrambled out of there, got to my car, started drinking water, started to process it. I was like, there's no way that there's a monkey, like a monkey creature in the Arizona desert. That doesn't make sense. And, through my field work out here, I've come to learn that these Bigfoots are not terrestrial. There's no way they could be. They do things that, I mean, how could a terrestrial creature disappear right in front of you? Or, they just do a lot of strange things. So as I came back on camp trips, the Bigfoots kept harassing me. Almost like they were trying to show me that they were here. It was so weird. After the first encounter, they would come. I would stay in the same campsite each year. It's on the creek next to a tree line, nobody really around. And at least once a camp trip, they would come through the site and walk through the creek or shake the trees or grunt and growl. And I I had to try and embrace it. And I got to the point where I was like, I need to see if there's reports of Bigfoot in Sedona. And that's what led me to Tom Dongo and the Bradshaw Ranch. And I talked to Tom the first time, and he said, the ranch was super active, and he said that it's been dead for a long time. He said since they moved off the property, there hasn't been any activity there. And I said, I just want to go anyway. I'd seen Tom's MUFON presentation and all the photos they collected with him and Linda. And I just was blown away by how much they gathered in one location. And I just wanted to see it. And the first time I went, it was incredibly active. Um, in hindsight, I didn't know what I was seeing at the time, but Linda Bradshaw had reported seeing dinosaurs on the property, like long neck ones and a T-Rex. And that first trip there, I found footprints of the long neck dinosaurs. I mean, like elephant-sized tracks walking through the mud. Later, I would find a T-Rex footprint fresh in the mud. And as I kept going to the ranch, it has kind of embraced it. And me, the ranch and I, which is weird to say, the ranch and I have this ongoing um, experiences that are still developing. It's still changing, and I'm just trying to do my best to have the right intent when I go there, which seems to be what causes these things to happen. If you go to hunt Bigfoot, it's really unlikely you're going to encounter it. But I go out there hoping to learn from it, thinking it's like Chewbacca, and maybe it'll give me a hug or a high five or teach me something. And that seems to be the way they react and kind of come out.
Yeah.
And I'd say when I'm there at night, it's maybe about 40% of the time now that one of them will come out or let me know it's there. I've seen them with my own eyes 4 times. I got that one of the little ones let me take its picture one night, and I've seen it once in the daytime, a 12-foot one at the ranch. The other times were at night, and at the ranch, and also at the site where I saw the petroglyph. Yeah, that there. You know, that one is about 6.5, 7 feet tall, and it's crouched down at the end of the porch of the Bradshaw Ranch. Its eyes glowing, it's casting a shadow on the house. It was physically there. And that night, I was taking photographs, and I took 5 of them in that area right there, and it's in 5 of them. And the weird thing is, the last 2 photographs, which I haven't really shown much, the bodies disappeared and only the head and eyeballs are left, as if it was actually phasing out as I was shooting the photos. In the first 3, the whole body is there. And in the last 2, it's just down to a head and glowing eyes. And to
Wow.
me, so, it just kind of went to show me that, it's not a monkey. It's something more than we can understand. But I feed them, they leave gifts. I put a chalkboard out, I draw symbols. They've drawn symbols back a couple times.
So Paranormal Paul asks, do you speak these intentions out loud when you get there or in your mind? I know there's a great book called The Psychic Sasquatch. Have you read that, Juergen? It's a great book. I think you'd really enjoy that one. Yeah, so do you speak out loud or in your mind?
I actually do both. The way I go about it is just kind of depends on how I'm feeling at the moment. I I feel like sometimes, I mean, I don't know that you need to say it out loud because they know our intent. I mean, before we've even gotten there, like these things seem like they're a very good judge of character. And like for example, I often I mean I've always collaborated with other people because having witnesses and having other giving people the chance to have the encounter themselves. And so when I bring other people out there with me, I take very special note of how that person is and how the ranch reacts when they're there. And when you have one in the group or just somebody comes out with you who's overly skeptical or afraid, the activity goes down. And when you get these very heart open, mind open people that are looking to mature themselves and raise their awareness, even without saying it out loud, that seems to be when the encounters happen. But I also say it out loud sometimes, especially when I'm have a camera on. With the UFOs, the reason I was on the Discovery Channel is because I found a way to mount my camera to military night vision, so I could film the UFOs through the Gen 3 night vision. And the first night I did this, when I got a response, I was out, had my camera hooked up. I was the only one with night vision at the time, and 2 women next to me were talking about the UFOs, saying, I wonder if they want to connect with us consciously. And so I was filming one at the time, and I thought I'm just going to ask it. And so out loud on camera, I say, flash if you want to connect with us. And this thing, boom, flashes really bright. And I was like, oh my gosh. And the next time I tried it, I was out filming with night vision again. And there was this craft kind of slowly going by, and it had discharged a bright light. So to me, I thought, okay, that one has the ability to make a flash. I want to try asking it questions because maybe it'll answer again. So first thing I said was flash for yes. And I think the first question I asked was, do you know who I am? And it went bang. And I was like, oh my gosh, do it again. Bang. And I was like, and I didn't even know what to say at that point. So I started asking it some questions. It would give a dull glow for no and a big bright flash for yes. And it ended with me asking this thing if it could come back in formation. It said yes. I said, can you come back as 2? And it said yes. I shut the camera off. About 90 seconds later, and this was a night where there was a full moon, so it was really hard to see things. And it came back so bright in a pair that everyone around me without night vision could easily see it. And it just made this amazing flyby, nice and slow. And it kind of really set into me that they're not necessarily aliens from another planet that evolved on their own and saw Earth and they were like, let's go see what's down there. It had to be something else. One, because there's too many of them in the sky out here for that. And secondly, they seem to know what we're thinking. And I was like, and not only that, but if an alien was on a planet 100 like 100 million light years away, and they look at Earth, they're going to see Earth 100 million years ago. They're not going to see how it looks now because the light has to travel. So if they were that far away, look at Earth, they wouldn't see humans here to begin with. So why would they think, oh, let's go look at the humans there? So it really kind of opened my awareness to what these things could possibly be. And I started asking people, why do you think UFOs are an alien from another planet? And you know what everyone's response is? I don't know. I was like, okay, that's strange, right? That we make that association, but we have no idea why we're even making that association.
Yeah.
And so I haven't read that book that you mentioned, but it's because I wanted to take the stuff John Lear had taught me and take it into the field. I was trying to let the evidence and my experiences tell me the story. And so I haven't really tried to consume too many TV shows or too many books because I just didn't want it to change my perspective to something else. I really wanted to just let the experiences be the puzzle pieces. And when I get enough of them and put them together, the truth will be the picture that the experiences painted themselves.
Yeah.
And, and I encourage everyone to talk about their stories and things like that too. But for me, the reason I share it isn't to change anyone's opinion. It's not to convince anyone of anything. It's just to reach maybe the 3 or 4 people out there that were like me, that strange things were happening to them. They didn't know how to understand it. They were getting anxiety from it or feeling crazy. And if I can just reach those few people that are probably in the back of the room and didn't even know if they should be there and give them some peace, that's what I needed. So that's kind of why I reach out sometimes and try to share some things. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to unpack there, and I just have so many questions that are bubbling up. First of all, we talked a little bit before the podcast, and I remember now we first met in Las Vegas at one
Yep.
of Dave Scott's event, and it just happened to be that weekend that John Lear had a service.
Yeah,
Um,
that was his funeral
yeah.
weekend. Yeah.
Right. So was honored to be able to attend that. So that was really cool, and sad and just amazing at the same time.
And
So I
it
did
was
have
great,
the honor to know him. Yeah, like you did. But I have a question really, really quickly. You're one event, I think you said you were 23 years old
Four.
and 24 years old, off by a year. And you said you you thought you were going to get in a car accident. Was there a time shift? I mean, you found yourself going the other way. Do you feel like you went through a vortex? What do you feel happened there, and how does that impact your view of what reality is? I mean,
Right,
did
right.
that cause you to go down that rabbit hole at all?
So we were driving in the fast lane. There were 6 cars in front of us at a dead stop with a fender bender, and we didn't notice it till the last minute. And I was still going about 60 miles an hour when we were like 10 feet away from all these cars. And the only thing I could think was to try and wedge my truck in the middle of the cars because airbag sensors are in the corner and I could trigger the airbags. And the last thing I said to my passenger was, "We're going to hit." I grabbed the steering wheel and cranked it to the side and stood on the brakes. We heard a screech. And then the next thing we know, we're sitting upright in my truck again, now in the carpool lane, going 80 miles an hour perfectly straight, and nothing was wrong. Nothing touched us, wasn't a scratch on us or the vehicle. And that was one of the first things I asked John when I met him.
Mm.
And he said, "Oh, yeah, the Greys did it." And I was like,
Hmm.
"What?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "The Greys aren't aliens." He said, "They're more like androids. They're these things, they don't have a soul. They're pre-programmed to do the work of the ETs, the higher level beings." And he said, "So when something in your life almost happens that isn't supposed to happen, they stop it from happening, or they'll make something happen that's supposed to happen to you." And so
Hmm.
that's kind of the catalyst for me that got me to try and understand what these beings were aside from aliens from another planet.
That's so interesting. So we popped up question number one. We'll pop it up again for a second, and then here in another 5 minutes, we'll pop up question number two. Another interesting, so you mentioned, that if you visited Sedona more often, time and time again, it seemed to get a personal connection to you.
Yeah.
Do you feel that that is still occurring? And now that you've moved, how long have you been in Sedona now permanently?
A little over 3 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that still increasing? I mean, we all know that's such a spiritual, high energetic area. And do you feel this personal connection is still happening? And have you, if so, too, both with Sasquatch and or extraterrestrial beings, do you have a certain connection to certain ones or anybody by name? Do you get downloads?
Right. Um, I I meet so many awesome people out here that have these abilities like you're talking about. And I try really hard to have an open mind, but my feet firmly on the ground. And I was telling somebody the other night, I have an open mind, but not so open that my brain falls out. And it's because I want to have encounters and things that I can back up. If something strange happens, I take a lot of time to try to process it. I don't share everything because a lot of it could just be a story that's made up, and I wanted to try to attain my PhD on this subject. And in doing that, I had to retrain the way I think, the way I was doing things, because you have to back up everything that's happening. And oddly enough, they the experiences are still growing in the sense that they're giving me more evidence to back up more stuff. I can't say I really get those type of downloads. People around me get them. I don't really have a psychic ability, but I bring those people out in the field with me because I want to see what they can get and see how well it lines up with what is actually happening on the ground and in the sky. And because I know people that can see Bigfoots etherically, but I can't. I only see them when it's a hairy thing in front of me. And so I collaborate with those people because I never was under the impression I could figure this stuff out on my own. It's going to take a collective effort if we're ever going to get anywhere with this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, for me, the encounters still grow. Like just about a month and a half ago, uh, I've joined a crew, Longhorn Paranormal. They asked me to become a member of their team and kind of open them up to more than ghosts. And so we did, it should be out pretty soon too. We went to the ranch and set up for 48 hours straight. And we, yeah, it was amazing. We had Wi-Fi, so we had one laptop that tracks every satellite out there, and we had one that tracks every plane. So as we were seeing things in the sky, we had comms, we could radio it to the tent, and they could tell us if there was a satellite. There really aren't that many satellites out here. And so this night in particular, we did have something new happen, and I was thrilled because it showed me that I should be working with this team. If we went out there and nothing happened when they were there, I'd be a little, I wouldn't be as motivated to work with them. But we go out there, me and a few other people. Uh, I became friends with this great remote viewer named Julia Kaman. So she was out there too. We were on one hillside, and I sent Jen, who founded Longhorn Paranormal, Nicole and Simon, these two other people, on a different hill. So there's a spot out there I found that a UFO landed on. And actually, a UFO landed in the same site on Monday. But I did some Bigfoot calls, and I told them, okay, start walking up the hill over there. And as soon as they started walking up the hill, they started getting rocks thrown at them. And that had never happened in all the years I've been out here. Poor Nicole, she slipped when she was walking on the hill, and a rock ended up hitting her in the shoulder and like leaving a dirt mark on her arm. And I told her, I was like, I'm surprised it hit you. And she told me, no, I actually slipped into the movement of the rock. And they were radioing back, like, should we stop? What should we do? I said, absolutely don't stop. Keep going because hopefully it'll throw some more. And we got some A1 gold footage of rock being thrown at Jen on camera. I mean, it falls down right in front of the camera. It's amazing. And it happened for the next 2 more Saturdays after that, and then it stopped. So I don't know if there was just a new Bigfoot in the area and it was kind of pulling pranks. They do seem to have a sense of humor sometimes. I don't think the Bigfoots are ever going to let me understand what they are, but it's like they leave breadcrumbs just to keep you going and keep you interested for some reason.
Do you think Bigfoot is connected to UFO or orb sightings? Are they interconnected or?
Um, from what I've seen, the Bigfoot have UFOs. They don't seem to need to use them though. They can just disappear right in front of you. I mean, the daytime sighting I had, it was at the ranch, and I was sitting there and I looked across the orchard where there's a nice panel of green trees, and suddenly there was this brown thing there. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, no, I'm like, where did a bunch of dead branches just get stacked up in the shape of a Bigfoot? What am I looking at? And then it turned and started walking. And when I got to a tree, walked behind it, and it was gone. Like it just completely vanished behind the tree. And there was no type of craft around or anything, unless it was all cloaked. But they don't seem to need a UFO. They can walk through walls. I've found footprints that the footprint line goes through a tree trunk. Like there's feet, and then there's a tree growing right there, but they didn't care. They just kept walking right through the tree. And
So interesting that I
yeah.
mean, why do you think, Juergen, that, I mean, we were just at the Bigfoot Museum today in Bailey, Colorado, Jim Meyer's place. So I have a Bigfoot fresh on the brain.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I agree with what you're saying, that it's like they're interdimensional creatures. They can blink out, but yet they show themselves from time to time, leave a few tracks,
Right.
just like Rocky Mountain Ranch, or in prints, but
Yep.
only a few. And then why do you think they do that? Do they need to kind of materialize to either be
So
tricksters or pranksters, or what do you think's going on there? It's so interesting.
when
Or maybe that.
before John Lear died, he gave me his source of information. And I recommend everybody read this guy's stuff. His name is Lou Baldwin. And Lou has been gracious enough to keep in touch with me and answer my deepest questions when I have them, because I like to have the opportunities to like do some critical thinking, but this subject is so bizarre that I get to this point where I'm like, "Ugh, I just need to figure out what's really going on."
Right.
And I asked Lou about the Bigfoots, and I'm sure a lot of people are not going to like this, but this is just what he told me. And it does seem to kind of explain that behavior. He said, well, they are native to Mars, which oddly enough is what the Hopi say. And he said they visit a lot of different planets. But when they get to a new planet, when they get to the planet, they need certain fluids from natives of that planet so their body can adapt.
Hmm.
And so, right, it's going to be far out there for people, but honestly, as I thought about it, the ranch will go quiet for a whole month, and then I'll go out there and get a Bigfoot trying to get my attention, and I'm like, well, where have you been this whole time? Like why does it, what is going on? And like one day I found a bunch of bricks and I stacked them up thinking it would rearrange them, and no, it stacked a bunch of logs up, and I'm like, okay, that doesn't make any sense. And these are logs too big for a person to pick up. And when Lou had mentioned that to me, and I thought, well, that would explain why they do this random thing every now and then. Maybe a new group of them got here and they need to have that encounter with us. He did say that we'll never remember that encounter. He said they are kind of taking us and getting from us what they need. He said, but we're not going to remember it. And so I have had missing time at the ranch a number of times that I've noticed, probably more times that I haven't noticed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to take those things into consideration and see what are the encounters lining up with, as far as, and so at this point that could be very well true, that's why they just give us a little bit here and there. They need something from us.
Yeah. This hour is whizzing by. I'm learning so much from you. This is a great conversation. And before we run out of time, let's go through some of these photos that you shared. I'd love for you to just, I'll pop them up, and if you can kind of talk us through each one so we can look what we're looking at. I'm going to go ahead and pop these up here.
So this one, yeah. So one of the things I like to do is teach people how they can also get evidence. And so with UFOs, the best way I found is to do long exposure photographs. So I do 30-second exposures with my cell phone on a tripod. And I like this one so much because what happens when a UFO flies by is it leaves a white line where it was. And in this shot here, the UFO was nice enough to change its trajectory to actually stay within my camera frame. So you could see it was flying kind of toward the edge there. And then when it got to the edge of my camera, it started going up and down like it was trying to stay within the shot. And I just kind of blew my mind after I shot the photo because I could see it flying. I was like, wow, what did it do that for? And then I look at the picture and I'm like, no way. Is it like trying to help me get a picture of it? And you can get some really incredible UFO pictures with long exposure.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Okay, next.
So this is a good one too because it shows what an airplane looks like compared to a UFO. So the streak in the middle there, that's a UFO, and off to the right, you can see the dotted line of an airplane because all aircraft, helicopters, airplane have strobe lights. So when you shoot these long exposures, you can clearly see the strobe lights there.
Right.
But the UFO in the middle, the reason I like this one is because I caught this one as it entered into the atmosphere. And on the far right of the line, you can see how it kind of phased in. It's this kind of weird wavy milkiness, and then bang, turns into a light, starts going. And even at the end on the left, it kind of did that as it disappeared too. And it just goes to show you it wasn't the ISS or something like that. These things, you can catch cool pictures of the space station, but these craft, these craft act in much different ways than that.
Yeah, that's a great shot that you can compare the two. I mean, you see the light configuration of the aircraft there and the weird squiggly. That's really unusual. That's a good shot. All right.
So these things, this is at the Bradshaw Ranch, and there's a few of these, and Tom Dongo and I have talked a lot about this. Some people call them skyfish or other things like that, and they are this incredibly weird phenomena that appears, and we're not sure what they are other than they're traveling incredibly fast and usually spiraling. Tom told me he thinks it's some kind of entity. Yeah, like that thing was moving so fast, and you can see the spiral of it going by. You can catch these quite a bit. It's not a bug. I've taken pictures of bugs in this process. And by the way, these photos are not long exposure. This is a simple one-shot flash photo. And the way I take that approach is for pictures of things on the ground, I take 3 photos in succession. And it's when you catch something in only one of the photos, then you really start to look at it. If it's in all of them, it could be something on the lens, it could be something actually there. But when something manifests in just one of the photos, you really got to start looking at it. And that thing is going really fast to cover that distance in an instant.
Right. And by the way, was it Benno from Oz? I agree with you. Juergen is a great guest.
Thanks.
All right, let's go to this one here.
Yeah, this is another kind of little light being out at the ranch that these things appear and disappear really quick. It isn't always easy to get a photo of them. That one was pretty close to the camera, and it wasn't quite an orb. It was more of those weird lines, skyfish kind of things. Yeah.
What is the status of the ranch right now? What's going on with Brad?
Yeah,
Is somebody living there or?
No, it's leased. The government owns it, and they lease it to Northern Arizona University. And they're doing agricultural study there, which when I first started going there, I didn't know if that was real, but I've run into the university people there 3 times now and seen them planting seeds and everything. So I mean, they're really there and they're really doing that. the first time I saw them there, I was kind of hesitant. I was like, okay, feel this out. The government lets them use a vehicle. When they're out there, they're in a vehicle with a government plate, which will throw people off. And some people just like to feed conspiracies. So they see a government plate and they run wild making stuff up. But I stayed there. There was a person down there. I waited till she came out. That first time, it was actually a special needs woman. And there's crystals nearby at the ranch. So I had crystals in my hand and I said, "Oh, are you here collecting crystals too?" And she looked at me. She's like, "No, I'm planting seeds in that planting area." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then, like the third time we saw them out there, we were on the ranch and they didn't care. Just don't mess with their area. Their area is clearly fenced off.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never tried to go in there, no reason to. I just try to use the areas that are open and, and that I'm allowed to be in. Yeah.
Respectful. Be respectful, people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then,
Okay.
you
So
know,
this one here, what do we have in this one? Is that one of those same?
yeah, yeah, another one of those weird little entities that comes zooming around as you're out there. Like I said, sometimes you don't because they move so quickly. And when I get a photo of it, I kind of feel a little bit lucky. And there's been times when we're out there with people and a line like that will follow just one person around in each picture. Like the line will only be by them or hovering above them or behind them. So they can get strange. But unfortunately, 95% of the time I'm out there alone. So there aren't many people in the photographs.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And that's such an important part. And you touched on it earlier. You packed a lot in there, but you talked about, the right intention and how important that is to have the right group of people. And that kind of speaks to what role do people play in manifesting either paranormal, UFO, cryptid,
Yeah.
and what role do you think, do you think that's an important factor? And do you think we can manifest the activity? Do you think that is part
Yes.
of the deal?
1000%. So nothing strange happened on the Bradshaw Ranch until Linda Bradshaw moved there. And
Okay.
that has to say a lot. I mean,
Mhm.
she was a catalyst, and when they left, it stopped. So, the book Merging Dimensions and her and Tom and all the research they did together, it's because Linda was there. And so, in my dissertation, I talk about how your level of awareness is going to affect what you encounter. And for those of us that are on this spiritual journey of trying to mature our soul, as we progress down that journey, you're going to start having encounters with these things because they're more of our cheerleaders, like the ones encouraging us to grow up and get over ourselves and become something bigger than an individual and join them up there eventually when we die. You could call them angels if you're very Christian. It's the same concept. Some people call them guardians or watchers or things like that. And you can imagine if think of students in school and there are tutors available that'll help them. Well, the tutors are going to help the students that are applying themselves more so than the kid that doesn't show up to school. So if we're applying ourselves in the earth process, the helpers are going to start helping us. Yeah. This picture is great. So I was out shooting photos and a UFO came by and it stopped and hid right in front of the planet Mars. The big bright light in the middle is planet Mars. This is cropped in. And I knew it had done that. So I set my camera up and I asked the craft if it could do a little dance for me. And that crazy line around it is what the craft did in 30 seconds after I asked it if it could do a little dance.
Wow, that's a great
Right?
shot. That's interesting. Yeah. I couldn't agree
Okay.
with you more, by the way, as far as, see, I agree. I'm 100% experiencing more things now. I'm middle-aged, like when I was a kid. Absolutely. I agree with you as well, Juergen. I think we are an important part of the phenomenon.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, we're curious beings, and then I think we can manifest now this is an interesting shot here. I
Yes.
want your take on it before I comment on it, but tell us about this one.
So this is a photo I took at the Bradshaw Ranch. The white square in the bottom, that's the roof of the house, which is like a tin roof. Um, and this shot was, I think, a 15-second exposure. And the photos normally have full color in them or complete black with stars. This is one of the strangest photos I've ever seen at the ranch. First of all, there's two things in the sky the
Mhm.
weird bright lights. You know, one is kind of looks like a squid, or I called them sprites because I wasn't exactly sure what those two things in the sky were, but something was hovering above, out of frame, and completely illuminating the roof of the house right there, and causing all this light distortion and disturbance in the photo that I have been unable to replicate in any other photographs. Whatever was around me that night, I could not see it with my eyes. When I shot that photo, I didn't think anything weird was happening, which granted could have been missing time. You know, maybe I was just blanked out in the instant that that happened. But when I saw that photo, I was kind of in disbelief at what I had captured. Yeah.
Yeah, it
I
almost
don't
reminds
know.
me of the
I don't think people
jellyfish.
hear what people think about it. Yeah, you know.
Skywatchers are calling in. Are you familiar with the Skywatcher program? And they're capturing all these very similar type of things in different locations. And one of them is the jellyfish, and that one, from what I can see, looks like a bit. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah, space squid, I love it. I
Yeah,
love it
the
too.
jellyfish I've
Um,
seen.
and are those two spotlights or contrails? You see the lights kind of doing this?
That was clear skies. There's no light source out there at all. I have no idea what the long streak beams were coming from. Me, not a clue.
So
Yeah.
you didn't see that with your naked eye?
No, no.
No.
And in fact, Monday night, the sighting we had Monday night, so I've actually teamed up with the Bradshaw family, and helping them with tours through Sedona Jeep Tours, what they own. And so we do a nighttime tour, and we go to this hillside by the ranch, and we had night vision. And Monday night, we were out there with three guests, and suddenly this incredibly bright, like if when you're looking through night vision, it was almost going to burn out the night vision. It was so bright. It was landed on the hillside next to the ranch, and when you take the goggles down, you could not see it at all. Goggles up, this like a sun. Move the goggles down, and you couldn't see it. And then I decided to hold my camera up and try to record it. And right as I start recording it, it just immediately shut off and disappeared.
Is
I
this
was like,
the
"Oh,
video that you sent me? Now,
yeah,
hopefully I can play it. It's pretty short, but I know people, I need to spend the money and get the faster speed, but dang it's pretty costly for the advanced Starlink here. So I need to do it because I don't like this glitch now. But let's try and give it a shot. So fingers crossed we could play this. And when was this? Like last weekend or something?
no, this was 2 days ago."
2 days ago. All right, let's give it a shot.
Okay, so that is on the ground right at the Bradshaw Ranch, and there should not be.
It blinked out. Come on, play. It's only like 16 seconds.
I did post it on my Instagram, which is at a baby raven. And so you can go there and you can see the video. And then the next day I hiked out to the location on the hillside where we saw it from. And sure enough, there's a big circle burned into the ground. So
Whoa, did you measure that circle?
yeah, it's actually not the first time a craft has landed there. Originally, a craft landed there maybe about a year ago. The circle's 26 feet by 28 feet, and it burned a tree, like destroyed a tree that had a 6 foot wide trunk. And there's another dead tree that the branches come right up to the edge of the burn circle. And this tree with dead branches, nothing on it, it's completely fine.
Interesting.
But the massive tree is decimated. And so as I've been monitoring that location, Geiger counter is about 3 times higher than the surrounding area, and an extreme plant growth occurred within the landing site. And then it had plants growing in it that were not growing in the surrounding area. And so yesterday I tried to track from the hillside, where did we see that light? And when I looked, I was like, no way, it's at the same place. And so I hiked back out there, and now the plant growth that was there a few weeks ago had once again been destroyed in a bit smaller of an area, maybe 18 feet across this time. So it looked like a smaller crack, like the one we saw Monday was smaller than the first one, or at least left a smaller impression in the ground than the first one. Yeah.
That's so interesting. Now, I know this might be an ignorant question, but honestly, I haven't really looked into the Sedona area for animal mutilations. Have there been any in that area?
No, that was one of the first things I asked Tom Dongo because I knew I wasn't going to find people to go to the ranch with me originally. And I asked him, is it safe for me to even do this? Like, I'm going to go there at night alone. He said, absolutely, it's safe. Nothing on the ranch has been hurt. There's never been any cattle or any kind of mutilations of animals, nothing getting hurt, no people getting hurt. But he did tell me to stay out of Sycamore Canyon, which is, a few miles out. He said, don't go into Sycamore at night and definitely don't go alone. And one of the weirdest stories he told me about Sycamore is him and 5, 6 other people were on a hillside nearby out there. And he said all of the group during the day, they watched a pterodactyl fly out of Sycamore Canyon.
Oh,
And,
wow.
Tom had no reason to lie to me. He's a friend of mine and we sit down and trade experiences. So yeah, I don't know. Sycamore Canyon, I've been in there now in the daytime a few times because you can go swimming and stuff down in there. I haven't hiked too deep into the canyon, but one of the Bradshaws was abducted one night when they lived on the ranch, and he was dropped off in Sycamore Canyon. And he was so afraid of what was around him, he got into the freezing cold river and swam 2 miles out of the canyon just to avoid all the stuff that was on the ground around him. And I'm
Wow.
not familiar with that experience, so.
Yeah. I've heard of pterodactyl sightings and cryptid bird sightings, in
Yeah.
these high strangeness locations. So it really doesn't surprise me. So Benno from Oz, I hope I'm saying that right. 1975. I love the 70s. So he wants to know if the nodes were microwaved or if you've checked for any of those, kind of telltale signs of crop circle evidence.
Oh, no, you know what? Actually, I haven't, but I will. I'll go do that. I'll go take a look, especially in that burn circle and whatever's left of the plants there. I'll take a look and see if we can't see anything. I know what you mean by the nodes. I've looked into that quite a bit. In fact, AJ from the Y Files, his episode on crop circles got me into crop circles again. Like I kind of forgot about him until I saw that episode. So yeah, I'll check that out.
Yeah, it's interesting to know that we had Dr. Pearson on UAP studies, and he did his dissertation on the UFO UAP phenomenon, just like you did, Juergen.
Mhm.
And one of his sightings or findings for the disc-shaped craft were these 75-foot circles. And I know we only have maybe 6 minutes left. But can you kind of talk about your dissertation and what
Yeah,
were some of your key findings?
right. So there was a few points that I wanted to make in it, and I had gathered enough evidence in the field out here to actually back it up and explain it. And to me, it was very weird because, I was going to put together a dissertation on a subject most people don't even think is real. And I thought they were going to tell me I'm a moron. Instead, they're like, you're a doctor. And so one of the points I made was about your awareness level, and that these are more like our guardians and our helpers than things from another planet trying to study us. They're not trying to study us, they're trying to help us. And helping us is us getting rid of envy, hate, and greed and learning to live with integrity. That's really all we need to do. It's hard to get or it's easy to get kind of wrapped up so deep into the UFO stuff and everything that we forget to do the Earth stuff. I mean, we're on Earth, right? We gotta keep remembering to do the Earth stuff, but it's so much fun to do the UFO stuff. So you kind of got to do a little bit of both. And another thing that I thought would be helpful in presenting the evidence in there is there's experiencers, especially with the UFO phenomena and what are called abductions. It's a very traumatic experience. Uh, I've had 3 that I remember. They weren't that traumatic for me, but they're very jarring and very like, what the heck? Now, for a lot of people, they're traumatic. And after the experience is over, they try to get help and they get a second wave of trauma from the ridicule and everything else they face. And so, if there's some of us out there being able to show the phenomena is real, maybe we can start to get rid of that second wave of trauma these people are having to deal with and actually be able to give these people some help and clarity and get them to a place where they understand it a little better and know that it's not something to be so afraid of. You know, we're afraid of things we don't understand and we don't know about. And we're
Mhm.
not taught this stuff in any kind of logical, understanding way. And so most people are just going to be afraid of it all the time. Well, if
That's
we can
right.
start showing it that it's real, then it kind of starts to eliminate the fear a little bit. It did that for me. And that is a big part of it. And also just explaining, you know, some personal relevance with me and John, and how John was always able to explain things to me in a way I could actually understand and digest it. And, you know, I hope to be a reflection of that for John. I don't know if you remember, I was the only one at his funeral wearing a tinfoil hat. I thought that was good. I had my tinfoil top hat
Remember,
on.
I think Susan Alloway says it the best, just be love. I mean, is the golden rule. We all learned the golden rule in elementary school, probably kindergarten, preschool. Do unto others. Is it that difficult, people? Come on. It seems to be problematic for so many. But I couldn't
Yeah.
agree with you more. And I love that you've had such a great mentor in John Lear. I think we all need mentors like that. For me, Dr. Leo Sprinkle. And I think, for all those people out there, be open to mentoring others. And I love that, that's why you're here talking. And, you shared with me before the show that, you get to a point where, hey, I need to share the evidence, share the photos. I love that when I was
Right.
showing these photos, you're like, I like to teach people how to capture something. So it is about teaching and giving back. So with 4 minutes left,
Yep.
what would you like to tell the folks out there? How would you like to finish out? Do you have anything coming up you'd like to share, or your closing
Yeah,
thoughts?
yeah. One interesting thing is that I was at the Tesla Tech convention in New Mexico a few weeks ago, and I got to meet Terrence Howard, who, you know, is an Oscar-winning actor. He's kind of come out with this new geometry concept, and he and I sat and talked for a while, and we're actually going to start collaborating quite a bit. And I'm going to bring some of his geometric shapes out to the ranch and see how the UFOs react to them and see how the Bigfoots react to the stuff he's made. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to sit and have lunch with him. I'm going back to California this weekend for my mom's birthday. So Terrence and I are going to sit down. I'm going to get one of the models, and I'm going to bring it back, and we're going to see what happens when we do that. And also, you know, to anybody who was like me a bunch of years ago that were pretty sure UFOs were real but just wanted to see one, yeah, just come out to Sedona. Make that your next vacation. How could going anywhere else be more thrilling than going to a place where UFOs are flying around? I still feel like Rey in the movie Star Wars, sitting there, she's watching the spacecraft coming and leaving from the spaceport at night out here. Or send me a message on Instagram and tell me you're going to be here. Let's go. You know, I do that with people all the time because John Lear did that for me. You know, I had to reach out to him blindly. And so I feel it's makes sense for me to do that to anybody else who wants to do this now too.
I love that. And your Instagram is right there at Baby Raven. So reach out to him. He offered, so take him up on it. What is your mom's name? What is your mom's name? Your first name?
Kathy.
Happy birthday, Kathy. That's awesome.
You know what's great is when we were at Contact in the Desert, I posted a picture that Josh Gates was going to be there. And my mom texted me like 5 minutes later. She's like, "Oh my gosh, you're going to meet Josh Gates?" And I'm like, "Probably not." And then we did. We went to his little meet and greet. And when I was there, when I met Josh, I had him film a video to my mom because she said, "I watch his show all the time." I was like, "You do?" And so I had Josh say, "Hi, Kathy. Thanks for watching." And it made her so happy. So she'll be thrilled that you did that. Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. That's awesome. Yeah, I know. I hope to see a lot of you at next year's Contact, because there will be another one. So that's always such a great event. I can't thank you enough for being here. And I'm going to have you back on now to see how these geometric experiments go out there at Bradshaw Ranch. And I
Mhm.
know that you keep capturing evidence, and that's so important. So again, thank you for being here. I hope you all check out his work. You mentioned there's a documentary that you can kind of see, or different little episodes.
Oh, yeah. If they go on YouTube and look up Hoodoo Tall. The first documentary's up, and I'm slowly getting together episodes for the sequel, Hoodoo Tall 2, and then we're gonna film a final one, which is gonna be more focused on my dissertation. So it's gonna be Hoodoo 3, Dr. Tall.
All
And
right.
that's yeah. And Longhorn Paranormal, the documentary we filmed with them, is coming out very shortly. And there's a crew from Belgium coming out October 2nd. I'm gonna do some with them. So yeah, it should just keep coming out.
Yeah, well, check out all of Juergen's work. And again, thank you. And we'll see you next Wednesday night. Until then, you guys have a good rest of your week and an even better weekend. We'll see you next week. Good night. Gotta hit the button.